When you think about certain murders, it really sinks just how much certain people end up dying without fulfilling their potential. It's especially worse when the realization sets in that we're talking about someone who would have been a bona fide star, regardless of what the situation might have been like. That really is the most devastating realization. And in the case of Raudha Athif, we have a perfect candidate for this. Raudha wasn't just any run-of-the-mill model. She was an absolutely stunning beauty. And even in her short life, she managed to show the world just what she was made of. The fact that her life was eventually snuffed out was truly a sad thing to see. Still, even the death of Raudha was a bit of a controversy. Different parties have given their explanations, and even to this day, there's no exact pointer as to how she sadly died. In this video, we'll look into Raudha's life, her burgeoning career, and the circumstances surrounding her untimely demise. Raudha Athif was the type of woman who you'd describe as a double treat. Sure, she was stunningly beautiful and was never afraid to show it. But what really drew most people to her was her mind. Raudha was smart, inquisitive, and driven, all of which were qualities that really just propelled her. Born in May 1996 in the Maldives, Raudha was the type of child who everyone just wanted to be around. And to be honest, it's easy to see why. This young lady was absolutely a bombshell. She had natural blue eyes that would make you feel like they were piercing into your soul whenever she looked at you. Her jawline was incredibly strong, and she had skin that was so pure it seemed unreal. Basically, Raudha was the type of girl who had everyone looking at her, even from a very young age. Still, considering the fact that she was raised in the Maldives, Raudha didn't particularly get any form of international exposure at the start. So like every other girl around, she just elected to pursue academic interests instead. Raudha studied at the Hiria School and Villa International High School in the Maldives, and this was kind of where things started to pick up for her. You know how it goes. When destiny calls, it really doesn't matter where you are. It finds you instead. While in school, Raudha participated in an environmental campaign on Maldivian national television when she was just 14. Her picture immediately went viral, and it led to her getting several modeling contracts and gigs. Job after another, campaign after campaign, Raudha began to build her profile. There was one particular picture, though, that really got her a lot of exposure. The picture, which was titled Maldivian Girl with the Blue Eyes, became a massive internet sensation, and from then on, her life pretty much changed. Interestingly, though, Raudha didn't necessarily want to confine herself to just modeling. I mean, sure, she was good in front of a camera and had the looks of a goddess, but Raudha actually wanted to do more. She had a passion for helping people, and she was quite good at sciences as well, so it was a no-brainer for her. She decided to pursue medicine. Following her high school education, Raudha got a scholarship to study medicine at the Islami Bank Medical College in Rajshahi, Bangladesh. The Department of Higher Education of Maldives gave her a fully funded scholarship, and by 2014 she was in Bangladesh pursuing her dreams. She spent 2 years in Bangladesh, and she'd already planned to transfer to a school in Australia to finish up her degree. It also helped that her family had already moved to Australia, so she could pretty much just go be with them. At this point, Raudha was so focused on her medical career and her schooling that it seemed she had completely abandoned her modeling aspirations. But remember that thing I told you about fate? Well, it came knocking again, and once again there was no way Raudha wouldn't open. In 2016, Raudha appeared on the cover of Vogue India. For anyone who's an aspiring model, there's no telling how huge this is as an accomplishment. Raudha appeared with 6 other girls from the country celebrating Vogue's 9th anniversary edition. After the magazine photo shoot came out, Raudha once again found herself smack in the middle of the global modeling landscape. Her phone began blowing up, and the opportunities started coming in once again. At this point, things were looking really up for Raudha, and it seemed like everything she touched turned to gold. Her modeling career was blossoming, and she was also making a considerable amount of progress with her medical pursuit as well. But things suddenly came crashing down on March 29, 2017. In the early afternoon, a friend went to Raudha's room to check on her. She noticed that the double doors were locked together, so she tried knocking, but no one answered. Interestingly, though, the friend noticed that the space between the 2 door panels was pretty decent, so she decided to look through the slit, and that in itself was enough to send her screaming. According to a statement from the friend, she first went to get a couple of other girls on the floor, and they managed to break down the door to Raudha's room. There they found the body of Raudha, hung from the ceiling fan with a silk scarf tied around her neck. They called the police, who claimed that they arrived and found Raudha's body cut down from the fan, and her body laying on the bed, face up. At this point, it was pretty clear that Raudha had been dead for a while. The friends and concerned floormates immediately worked with the police to send Raudha's body to a hospital attached to the medical college, where an autopsy was performed. Authorities claimed that Raudha must have taken her own life, attributing their hypothesis to the deep marks around her neck. However, not everyone was particularly convinced that this assessment was true. The leader of this opposition force was none other than Raudha's father, Mohammed. Like everyone else in Raudha's family, Mohammed had been in Australia when this terrible incident occurred. And after he got into Bangladesh, he seemed convinced that someone must have been behind his daughter's demise. Primarily, Mohammed claimed that Raudha must have been killed by extremist Islamist terrorists. How and why did he think this? Well, mostly because Raudha's photo shoot with Vogue India had actually stirred some controversy. You see, because Raudha had been raised in the Muslim religion, many believed that her photo shoots and her entire career as a model had been against some rules of decency. Primarily, many extremist Muslims had criticized Raudha for being overly secular, with the young lady being seen regularly and in photo shoots not wearing a hijab or covering her hair. For Raudha, a young lady who was raised in a relatively secular Muslim family, none of these photo shoots would have been an issue. But for a lot of Muslims, many of whom were in Bangladesh since it is a predominantly Muslim country, Raudha's entire career was a trigger, and Mohammed believed that one of them, or a group at the very least, must have been the cause of this incident. Mohammed added the fact that he had known Raudha all her life, and she never exhibited any behaviors or traits that would suggest that she had been depressed or would try to take her life in any way. At the same time, he also dropped an interesting doozy: the fact that the autopsy that was performed was done without the express permission or even the consent of the family. At the moment, it's easy to see that we have a bit of a conundrum on our hands. Mohammed is certain that his daughter's death wasn't by chance, even though the autopsy report claims otherwise. So how do we know who is right? Well, the answers just might be in the crime scene. Now, if you recall, Raudha was found hanging from her ceiling fan. But when some experts went to the room to check, the fan they found there would barely be able to support the body of someone like her.
Now, I'm no expert, but Raudha weighed 55 kilos. I'm gently pulling on that and look what's happening. If 55 kilos was hanging from that, then surely the fan would come down.
Think that's weird enough? Well, consider this. The scarf that was found hanging along Raudha's neck was a silk scarf. You know, the ones that you'd wear if you were cosplaying as a babushka or something. Yet the marks that were found on her body were incredibly deep and abrasive. And when it came to the crime scene itself, it appeared that there were several signs that indicated a struggle. For instance, researchers found a large crack in the glass tabletop, as well as another crack in her hallway mirror. And all of this isn't to mention the fact that there was a half-drunk cup of coffee sitting on Raudha's stove, as well as a pot of curry that was cooking on the stove. If she really was going to off herself, why would she be cooking at the time? To be honest, the theories around Raudha's death have been incredibly extensive. It seems almost like everyone has something to say about this one, and over the years there have been more and more speculations. Still, whatever you think, it kind of seems like the theory about Raudha being the victim of an extremist group's attacks might have been the most prominent. Prior to Raudha's passing, Bangladesh had been a major hotbed for extremist attacks, and in fact, just a week before she passed, the college was raided after suspicions had mounted that it had some ties to local terrorist groups. The raid led to the arrest of 29 students and teachers, and while this is definitely not a smoking gun, you can easily see the links here. Raudha was a student and a model in a country where many people had believed that a recent shoot she did was a slap in the face of their traditions and beliefs. At the end of the day, even the investigations that were done into Raudha's death by the authorities didn't yield much in terms of tangible results. And even though the outrage surrounding her passing was quite extensive, it kind of seemed like things eventually died down over time. The loudest voice has so far been Raudha's father, who maintains that her friends must have had ties to extremist groups who wanted her dead for what they perceived to have been an insult to their faith. Whatever it is, The death of Raudha Athif was definitely a huge blow, and not just for the fact that she was a model. In an eventual tribute that Vogue sent to Raudha, the editor of the shoot that she appeared in praised her devotion to medicine and helping people, claiming that it was incredibly difficult to even reach out to her for the shoot. As the editor explained, they had to reach out to Raudha through Facebook, and even then Raudha made it clear that modeling was only second place in her life. If a shoot was going to interfere with her studies or be inconvenient, then she wouldn't do it, regardless of the agency that was calling. That is some level of dedication. Would we have seen a woman eventually double as both a world-famous model and a successful medical practitioner? No one knows. Still, what is without a doubt is that Raudha Athif's demise was a terrible incident. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed, please be sure to like the video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any more true crime content. See you in the next one.